Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to those of you who are joining us and still joining us. I still see a few folks coming on the call. We do have all of our counselors present by the look of things, and we have our CAO clerk. So I think we are in a position to get going. So if I can, I would like to call the meeting to order, and as usual, we will start with the playing of our national anthem. I will now read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. Thank you. I will now ask our counselors if anyone has a pecuniary interest to disclose. All right, hearing nothing, I will let the record show that no pecuniary interest was declared. Prior to the dinner hour, we had a closed session. And so our next item then would be to approve the balance of the agenda. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the agenda be as circulated?
I'll move it, Councilor.
Thank you,
I'll
Councilor
second.
Lamb. And seconded by Councilor Gorham Matthews. Any comments? Any discussion? Any opposed to this being the agenda? All right, thank you. That's carried. And that brings us to item 3.1, which was matters arising from the closed session that we had prior to this upper hour. The only item that we have rising was approval of the minutes from the closed session of our meeting on April 5th, 2022. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone approve the closed session minutes of the regular council meeting of April 5th, 2022?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman Matthews, seconded by
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Any objection to approving this motion? Okay, thank you. That one is carried. And we have this evening no presentations or delegations, no planning items, and there is no public meeting, which brings us to our consent agenda. Item 10 on the agenda, and our consent agenda tonight consists of first of all, the regular council meeting minutes for April 5th, 2022. The minutes of the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting that was held on March 2nd, 2022, in the unfinished business that is listed on page 4 of your agenda. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone approve the council meeting minutes of April 5th, 2022, and receive for information all the other items contained in the consent agenda dated April 5th, 2022.
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by,
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
thank you, Councillor McEwen. Is there any discussion? Any objection to this motion being approved? All right then. And I guess with that, there will be no matters arising from the consent agenda.
I do have one, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Gorman Matthews. Yeah, please stop me if I
Yes.
jump. Anybody, please stop me if I jump over something that we should be. It felt
Yeah,
like we were
I was
moving
being
along really
patient.
fast here. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was being patient waiting for matters arising because I jumped the gun last time. So yeah, under the minutes from the Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting, there was a motion that we would like the council to consider endorsing. Now, when I talked to the CAO this morning, that she said that the usual process would be that we would have staff prepare a motion of our own to support this for our next, it would be on the next council meeting agenda. If everyone's in agreement with the motion that we had presented from the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. It was about microfibers and just asking the province to make it mandatory to have a filter put on all new washing machines.
Oh, okay. So you're not presenting that one tonight. I noticed it wasn't on the.
No, so it would,
You're going to
like-
bring back the motion to another meeting. Is that my understanding?
yes, we'd like, I think that's the general procedure, is that our own motion would come at the next meeting.
Okay, is there any, are there any questions for Councillor Gorman Matthews about this particular item? I believe the councillors have seen, but I have seen the material that you're talking about, but I don't think it was in the agenda for tonight's meeting. So perhaps at the next meeting, we'll have a report then, will we, you can include that
Sure.
material? Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other matters arising from the consent agenda? Okay, then. That then brings us to accounts payable. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the accounts payable listing in the amount of $113,038.55 for the period April 1st, 2022 to April 15th, 2022.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Seconded by,
I'll second,
I'll
Councillor McEwen.
okay, thank you. I got Councillor McEwen. Any discussion, questions, or comments about the accounts payable? If there aren't, then I will ask if anyone is opposed to the motion. Okay, hearing no objection, that motion is carried. And that brings us to item 12, which is a bylaw to appoint a treasurer and tax collector. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby approves bylaw 25-2022 to appoint a treasurer tax collector for the Municipality of Whitestone and to repeal bylaw 58-2021. And that is I'm sorry, that this bylaw be read a first and second time. I guess I should start that over again. I'm sorry, there's a word missing out here, but that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby approves that bylaw 25-2022 to appoint a treasurer/tax collector for the Municipality of Whitestone and to repeal bylaw 58-2021 be read a first and second time this 5th day of April 2022, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 5th day of April 2022 and numbered bylaw 25-2022. Is there a
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that should read this 19th day of April, 2022, both read the first and second time and the third.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, I'm not going to read it again, but when you see the April 5th, it's April 19th, which is today, of course. I'm still looking for a mover and seconder.
I'll move it.
I'll
right.
second, Councillor Woods.
I heard Councillor Woods or Councillor McEwen. I'm sorry. I heard Councillor Lamb move and Councillor Woods second. Let me get this down right. Okay. So is there any discussion about this motion?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
We're repealing bylaw 58-2021. What is that bylaw? Was that the last time we appointed a treasurer and tax collector?
That was our interim treasurer that we appointed, if I'm not mistaken. Is that not correct?
Well, now why
Madam
would
Clerk?
it be 2021? That's my question. That's what I'm getting at.
I think it's 20, I believe it's 21-21, but I will,
Well, we just
No.
I
appointed
will
Barb
make
a
it
few months
administrative.
ago.
That's
No,
right.
No,
So it's not 2021. It's that's right.
Yes, it
That's
is.
right. It's 2021. It's bylaw 58 in 2021. We appointed Barb Cribbett in December. And
Okay.
we're repealing that and appointing Manish. That's right. You had me
Okay.
confused there for a minute, Councillor Lamb. Thank you.
Well, I didn't, I thought we had appointed Barb earlier in the year, but if it was December, then that makes sense to me. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I will ask the clerk to call the roll for the vote, please.
Thank you. Counselor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Counselor Lamb,
Yes,
Counselor McEwen,
Yes.
Counselor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. So we can now officially welcome Manish Goulal as our treasurer / tax collector. Sorry, I want to get that right. And he started today.
That is correct. He started today.
So he's not on the call, but we'll welcome him in absentia. All right, so thank you. And that brings us to our staff reports section. We have 4 staff reports. The first one has to do with the supply, delivery, spread, and stockpile of granular A. So gravel for the roads. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received report PW-2022-03, which relates to tender number 2022-05 for the supply, delivery, spread, and stockpile of granular A for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby award the contract for the supply, delivery, and spread / stockpile of granular A to Fowler Construction Limited in the total adjusted amount of $166,972.20 plus HST. Would somebody move that, please?
I will move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second.
I'll
Counselor
second.
Woods.
okay, I think I got Councillor Woods first, so as the seconder. So the motion is moved and seconded. Is there, first, I will ask if our, well, either our CAO or our manager of public works, Dave Creaser, I see, has joined the call. So would either of you like to comment on this or by anything by way of introduction?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to see that we've got a competitive offer or competitive tender in from Fowler's. It does meet our budget. They were the only ones that did submit this year. However, they did provide a competitive tender. It is up from last year, but it is up within the planned amount. We did plan for a modest increase. So, well, shouldn't say modest, but 15% increase, which was expected, and they did come within that margin. So we're pleased that we have gravel again this year, and we're planning to do a maintenance on Farley's. The major maintenance is going to be on Farley's Road, some of Maple Island, when we rip up the surface treatment from 520, and then we're going to do a little bit of gravel in Ardbeg for the helipad as well. Those are the planned events. The remainder will be our stockpile for our maintenance gravel in our yard. And, if there's any other questions.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Are there questions?
yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lamb, go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. So help me out here. I understand that it's up 15%. I guess we got a good deal last year. But in the budget, we've been talking about, last year, I don't have the budget in front of me, but I thought it was 141 or something like that. the initial budget was 150. Then it went up to, I thought, 181 that we were going to spend on gravel this year. And so we go out to bid and we're at 166. So in terms of the amount of gravel that we're going to hopefully put on our roads or in our stockpile, where's the other 15,000 from 166 to 181? If I have that number right, it's either 181 or 175, but I thought it was 181. So in essence, we're not going to follow the budget. We're only going to put 166,000 of gravel in our roads, because at no time during the budget did we talk about tonnage. And maybe that's what we should have been talking about, but because that's actually the amount of gravel you get. But so help me out here. I would have expected this to come back closer to 181. Or does that mean we can go out and have another small tender for 15 grand worth of additional gravel? So someone help me.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The short answer is you are correct. Our tender does allow for us to go over the tender. We've talked to Fowler and they are able to meet our needs. So we will use our budget, in fact, this year. So we did get another competitive rate, which we're pleased with, which should allow us with these numbers, which you will see out on our roads with us doing work. This is a good thing. We came in with a competitive rate and we got a little bit of room to move with it. So we do intend to use it all for the gravel this year for that item.
So we're going to eventually this year buy an extra $15,000 worth of granular, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there's 180 is the budget and 180 is what we'll spend.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Are there other questions? Anybody? If not, then I will call the question by asking our clerk to
Mr.
call the roll.
Mayor.
Oh, yes,
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor
yeah,
Knapp.
sorry, just to follow up. And again, I'm glad I got the answer that we're going to spend our allotted money on gravel. Maybe in future, for budget purposes, we should talk about tonnage and price is a side kind of, we decide we have, whatever tonnage this year, and next year we're going to put whatever percentage more tonnage or less tonnage or whatever. And that maybe helps us keep it more in perspective. So that's just a suggestion for future years. Thank you.
I'm just looking, was the tonnage not listed in the report?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
maybe
it is, I'm looking on page 13-1, sorry, the tender that was issued and it's possible that was, I don't know, maybe that is before we discussed raising the number, but in any case, it was for 10,060 metric tons of granular material. And that's what they bid on. And that's the price that we got. We don't have to retender to go over it. We just retender one. We just tender once for the year. But
If I may respond, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
You're correct. It was tendered with the original amount prior to us raising the budget number. So this was out in tender at the time. When it did come in, we did contact Fowler and ask if they were able to meet our quantities with our increased budget, and they did agree to meet their price, to deliver it at that price, to deliver our increased quantities. So that's how it did come about.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else about this item? Any other questions? If not, I will I will ask the clerk to call the roll for the vote, please.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. The next one has to do with slurry seal treatment. This is item 13.2 on a couple of our roads. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receive report PW-2022-04 related to tender 2022-04 slurry seal treatment, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby award the above referenced contract to Duncor Enterprises, Inc. in the adjusted amount of $86,682.48 plus HST. Mover and seconder.
I'll
I'll
make
move,
that motion.
Councilor McEwen.
Okay, I heard Councillor McEwen move and Councillor Gore Matthews second. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Once again, I'll ask if our Public Works Manager has any comments about this particular one by way of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This year we have slurry seal going on our two roads that we put surface treatment on last year. The one first road being Whitestone Lake Road. It received a new double surface, and this year we'll get a slurry seal. And then the remainder of Canning Road, where we did the repairs to those culvert sections, it will also receive from where we left off at Carver Lane right to the end of the snowplow turnaround. We'll receive slurry seal right across it. And it is at the top of our budget, but it's right at our budget, so which is good. But prices are up this year for surface treatment and slurry seal, up more than our gravel prices. Thank you.
All right, great. Questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I'm not really on the slurry seal. I'm all for it. We'll get it, put it down and that kind of thing. But when you say on Canning Road, the cutouts, we did the cutouts last year where mostly the culverts were, replaced the culverts, did all the work. But yet when you drive down Canning Road in that area, David, that there's still a couple of those cutouts that have heaved. One particular, most of them are better, but there's one, and I'm just wondering, is there anything? Did we do that work, or did outside people do that work? And I know life isn't perfect, but I mean, you would think the very next spring that we wouldn't get heaving again. That would, again cause a bump in the road. So can you comment on that? The only other thing on Canning Road is there's a huge bump, always has been, right by Tom Sutcliffe's house as you first come down Canning Road, and that's a perpetual problem. I don't know whether anything has or can be done about that. And again, I'm not complaining. It's a nice road, and we're fortunate to have it. But with all the money that we've put in, hopefully we can make it as best we can. So any comments on that? Again, the slurry seal, it's got nothing to do with the slurry seal, but the condition of the road before we put the slurry seal down. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. You are correct. We have talked to Duncor to see what we can do. It was a question of I think both parties did play a role in that bump, but the tie-in could have been, and the grading, they did the grading. So we did talk to Duncor about improving that situation. They have assured us that they can improve it when they come to do this job, and they did talk to us and say that that's the time. They did come and look at it. And we plan to address that this year when we do our slurry seal, prior to doing our slurry seal. We're trying to improve it. I don't think we'll make it perfect, but we'll definitely improve it.
Okay, and what about up near Ton Supleth's house near Balsam?
I'll have to review that again and see where we can see what we can do about that. I don't know if we can do anything with this year with the slurry seal, but I'll have to look and see what we can do with that.
Yeah, we put slurry seal in that area last year, right?
Right.
So
So
yeah, that's always been there.
so I've taken a note here.
Yeah, actually, Tom likes it because he thinks of it as a speed bump. So, which is probably not untrue. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask one? It's not specific on this, but it's to do with the gravel and leading toward, I guess, surface treatments.
Go ahead.
Our plumbing works manager mentioned that we're putting gravel on Maple Island Road, I believe it is, where we've ripped up the surface treatment on that section of road. Is that correct? I'm just wondering why that would happen, unless it's an anticipation for further surface treatment.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Part of our plan is to do Maple Island from the 520 up to remove that surface treatment. And so that'll have to be ground up, and then we're going to do some repairs and ditching, and it's going to receive gravel. And then next year we'll receive a new double lift of surface treatment under our current plans.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on this item? All right, then, if you're ready for the question, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Cobry.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. The contract is awarded. Item 13.3, a staff report in connected with a heavy duty pickup truck. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report Public Works -2022-05 from tender 2022-03 for the supply and delivery of a heavy duty pickup truck for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby award the above reference contract to Peel Chrysler in the amount of $71,000. Sorry. Is that $71,750? Is that?
There's a one.
Is that the?
It should be 71,175.
71,175. Okay, thank you. I was just looking that up. So it's $71,000, $71,175 plus HST. So, mover and seconder.
I'll move,
Councillor
Councillor
Wood.
So I think I heard Councillor Woods first and Councillor McEwen second. Is that correct?
Fine, thank you.
Mover and seconder. All right, thank you. And that is open for discussion. And once again, I'll ask if our manager of public works has any comments before we take questions. Looked
Thank
to
you,
me
Mr.
like this was the only, the only heavy duty pickup truck in the province of Ontario at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're not wrong. It would appear that these are hard to come by and orders are hard to fill when it comes to these trucks. And we're quite pleased to find one that's within our budget. So there's not much more to say. We did try. We talked to so many dealerships, and we sent out and circulated our tender. We also reached out to a lot of them, and this is really what's available. If we go used, they're asking even higher than the new prices for the gently used ones. So
So I hope you like the color.
it will be black. It's gonna be black.
All right, questions or comments on this tender? Well, all right. Madam Clerk,
Is it diesel?
okay, we have a question. Is it diesel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, this truck is a gasoline truck, not diesel.
Did we ask for diesel at all, or? Why
No,
did
we
you
asked,
decide-
I apologize, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We did request a gasoline engine. Our previous truck did cost quite a bit in repair and maintenance for the diesel with the after treatment portion of the truck. Our mechanic did recommend that we go to a gas, as they're a lot less in maintenance, and the gas trucks are now much more competitive in the work department. They can pull more, and they have more horsepower and torque than they did in the past. And the maintenance on them and reliability is pretty high. The cost we've seen in our maintenance on the diesel just didn't justify us going with the diesel. Keep our maintenance costs down in the future, we went with the gas. And it's also saves 10,000 up front as well.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the truck? All right, Madam Clerk, please.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes,
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes,
That motion is carried.
all right, thank you. We have a new truck. Item 13.4 is our quarterly building services report for the first quarter of 2022. I'll ask for a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report building -2022-02, the building services update and building permit activity report for January 1st to March 31st, 2022 for information. Who would like to move that?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by
I'll second it, Councilor Lamb.
Councillor Lamb. So questions. I was going to say for our building official, but he is not available this evening.
Yes, if I
Oh,
may, Mr. Mayor, he was unable to attend tonight. He did give
Mm.
me, I can probably answer a few questions, and he gave me
Sure.
a little bit more information about what's happening in April. Things are ramping up. An additional 4 building permits were issued, just with a value of just under 500,000. 10 more applications submitted, 2 minor variance applications approved at the Committee of Adjustment, and 2 more minor variance applications are pending. So he wanted me to share that with you, and that's what he's been working on.
Are there any comments or questions regarding this report?
Yeah. Michelle, do you know whether he is using the electronic system for permitting? I forget the name of it, but is that being utilized by him?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's called the iCloud. It's not being utilized yet because he's working remotely at the Rhodes Garage, and there's some challenges with broadband there. He should be back in the municipal office by this Friday, or ready to go in this Friday or Monday, and then we'll start setting up the iCloud for him. And he's received some training, and it is ready to go. It's just a matter of him getting into the municipal office to be able to do that and to set up all the necessary equipment he needs for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the building report? Okay, if not, I will ask if anyone is opposed to this motion. It's simply a motion to receive, so. If no one is opposed, I will declare it carried. So that brings us to item 14, which is a report from the Washikesh Landings Task Force regarding parking at the Indian Narrows landings. And you have the report with you in the in your package. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at it. The report came from the task force, which, as you'll recall, has a couple of members from council, Councillor Gorham Matthews and myself, and a couple of members who are nominated by the Washikesh Conservation Association. And we do have on the call this evening, I'm just looking at who's signed on here, but we have a couple of members with us from the executive of the Conservation Association, and I will just take a moment to mention their names. Lynn Brennan, who is the president of the association, is on the call. Barb Cribbett, who is, in addition to having been our interim treasurer in the municipality, is the treasurer of that association. And 2 directors, Steve Raw, who is one of the association members of the task force, and Paul Thompson. And if I missed anybody, and since you may have some questions about this, with your permission, I would like to invite them, if council agrees, to address questions if there are specific ones when we get into discussion. But to start off with, what we do have some recommendations that are in the report, and they got translated or got mapped, if you like, into resolutions. And the first one is that I'd ask for a mover and seconder for is the following. It's listed as 14.1A, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the report of the Washikesh Landings Task Force dated April 19th, 2021, regarding paid and enforced parking for information, and for information and consider its recommendations. So could I get a mover and seconder for that to get us started, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews.
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. And can I assume that there is no opposition to receiving the report and considering the recommendations? Thank you. So the next motion that is listed in the list of recommendations is kind of the watershed for this. We did it that way so that we could get a discussion around the philosophical question about, is this a good thing to have paid enforced parking at the Washikesh landings, at any landings, I suppose, because this is something that could, I guess, could be applied elsewhere if council saw fit to do so in the future. But that's, I mean, there are still, as you can appreciate, a bunch of details to be dealt with if the answer to that question is yes. But if the answer to the question is no, then it would be premature to go and do a bunch of work on on the details of exactly how this would be implemented. But what I would suggest, the easiest way to kind of get a handle, I tried to keep this report as short as possible. The easiest way to get a handle on the key issues is to look at the fact sheet that is, I think it's page, maybe page 4 into the report. And that will kind of give you the history without, and I will let other people speak to this if there are, I mean, other folks who've been involved in the deliberation around this, leading up to this report, because there actually was quite a lot of work went into it. And if you know, if there are questions, perhaps some of them will want to answer it. But the issue of parking at the public landings on Washikesh has been around for quite a while, as you'll know. And the municipality recently, well, first of all, the Cottagers Association itself made an investment going back 10 years ago now, I guess, in expanding the parking area because there literally was an acute shortage. And then 2 years ago, the municipality agreed to do some more work to basically increase the space that's available. And this is without any question, these are the busiest public landings we have. There are significant numbers of people who depend on them for access to their cottage properties, most of which have been around, you know, longer than the municipality. This is not something that municipality neglected to do to make sure people had private access or whatever. It's also a major gateway to canoe routes and other, you know, wilderness camping in the area. So during the summer, if you went back there right now, you would see there's lots of space and not too many vehicles. But if when we get on into the summer season, the lots that are there will be pretty much full, and the whole side of Indian Narrows Road will be parked with vehicles. So we have been requested, as the report notes, by the association to implement enforcement of parking. And they've had a system where for some time they have been selling voluntary, I say voluntary because there's no enforcement of them, but they've been selling parking permits And that money has been used to do things related to the landings and so on. And there's a list of that in the report. But the compliance rate with the voluntary, so-called voluntary parking permits is pretty low. And this would be an effort to try to get more revenue and to make sure that it is that it's fair in terms of who's actually using, who's people who are using are the ones who are paying. And it would generate some revenue that could be used not only to fund the enforcement, but also to fund some of the maintenance going forward of those particular landings. Which will obviously require work over time. They're just like any other asset that we would have that would be under asset management. So anyway, I will stop there and ask, we'll get, if we can, we'll get this particular question on the floor for discussion, and then we'll take people's questions and comments. Can I get a mover, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby approves in principle the introduction of paid and enforced parking at the Washikesh landings to be implemented as soon as practical?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman Matthews. Is there a seconder?
I was muted. I'll second it.
Okay, I heard Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Thank you. All right. Let's we'll open it up for discussion, for questions and comments.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I'll kick it off lightly.
Sure, go ahead.
I was going to second it there for a discussion anyways. This is a really big issue in my mind. I know it is for the folks around the lake, and it is for the whole municipality. And as you mentioned, traditionally, those landing spots have been key access locations for out-tripping a whole lot of different activities, especially through Washikesh over to the river system and beyond, and north and south. A couple concerns I have are still trying to reach compliance in high numbers, and I'm not sure we can hit with consistency on the users. I know it's been pretty hit and miss, and the numbers have increased drastically, especially in the last couple of years, and maybe beyond that, 5 to 10 years probably, but COVID has certainly increased things drastically. The permitting and enforcement part of it, as your notes indicate, you'd be looking at a similar system as fire permitting, which is, I think, a good idea. I just don't understand where the logistics of it will fall out. Students certainly would not be capable, I don't think, of being enforcement type individuals and meeting people head on. Permitting, as is noted in there also, would be, I believe, by license plate number. There would have to be some ticket on the vehicle and or some identification, and I see that as a good one, probably. I'm not sure how that falls out with freedom of informations and how the ministry, maybe you folks have already looked into that side of it, but how that fits with with the rights and legalities of using license plates as a ticketing number. I say just some unanswered questions in my mind. I know it's important, and it's a very big deal, and you folks have done a tremendous amount of work on it. I appreciate that. So the cost neutral, I believe you mentioned in there also. You feel the tickets will pay, the parking tickets would pay pretty much for the attendance and for the for the enforcement and such, I really have to wonder in a way if that's something that we can do without senior supervision of some kind. Somebody's gonna have to take responsibility for a project like this, whether it be CAO level or someone under her or that person. So anyway, there's some unanswered questions in my mind. Those are the comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McEwen. I don't, I'd like to give the opportunity for some of the other members of the task force or the folks who have worked on this to answer some of these questions, I think. And I mean, one of your questions perhaps was, well, how did the association arrive at the point where they felt that they wanted to ask us to do this? And we do have a specific ask, by the way, from the association, which kind of came out of a resolution that they passed at their last annual general meeting. So I don't know if one of the, if possibly Lynn Brennan or Paul or one of the others who's on the call would like to just kind of explain sort of how this came to be, this request came to be. I can tell you that initially, when the task force was formed, the task force discussed this. They said, well, is it going to be necessary to enforce? And the consensus of the group at the time was, well, maybe we can, solve this without solve the problem without adding this other level of complexity. So anyway, Lynn, would you like to comment, or Paul Thompson, or Barb, or any of the others that are on the call? Steve, anybody? You have to unmute yourself and then go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's Paul Thompson, a relatively new member of the task force, but I've been coming to the lake area since 1987, and I think first and foremost, we do appreciate the partnership we've had with the municipality since its inception, and helping us to create a safe and accessible spot for not only the cottagers who rely on the parking access, the lake access, but the visitors to those cottages, as well as the day trippers, the canoers. It truly is in the spirit of public access that we're looking for the next level of commitment. And, I think my last stint on the cottage executive was back when we were first incorporated, and parking compliance, trying to have that good neighbor parking feel was an issue even back then at the, in the early 2000s. So I think we've come to this with an understanding of, yes, we have a general compliance concern as far as being able to access the parking, the what we're calling voluntary parking. They're currently sold through our newsletter subscriptions. People cut a check and send that in. We have some available at the landing store with the Bennett's cooperation, but that doesn't help the person who gets there at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. So there's an access to compliance that I think we noticed would be one of the barriers. And I think the opportunity to move towards more of an app based, and keeping in mind, we are hoping, different levels of access. I think on your quick facts, Mr. Mayor, that you referred to on page 4 of the report, talks about some ideas of parking structures that the people who have typically purchased permits for the season could still do that through the app. The people who are there for the day could do that, and everyone in between could still access. So just by virtue of having access to a parking pass, I think we will have compliance increase. I think the other piece to remember is 99% of the people coming to the lake are very used to paying for parking. wherever they go in the jurisdictions that they live in. So the idea of being able to park for free or not be responsible for parking but still expect the safe and accessible parking space to be maintained is not realistic. So Councilor McEwen talked about some of the logistics. I think some of those questions would be satisfied with the whoever is going to be helping us with the software, helping you, I guess, with the software side of the permit process. We're actually hoping that parking enforcement becomes almost a non-issue as compliance increase and access to parking permits is there and is guaranteed. But of course, we will have to deal with people who are either non-compliant, or that may be parking in one of, and I would like to state my appreciation for the signage that the municipality has supported and posted. It's very, very clear as to where people need to park and where you park your trailer on its own. And if you're towing a vehicle, if you have a trailer attached to your vehicle, there's a spot for that, and there are spots for accessible parking. But we know that when there aren't easy spots to get to, some of those accessible parking spots, for example, get used by people who don't have accessibility permits. So there will be a need for some enforcement, whether it's for accessibility parking enforcement, whether it's for people who are not following the guidance that you have put up on your signage. Other than adding to the sign right now, please, underneath, there is no follow-up that we can offer. And Mr. Mayor, and I'm certain councillors have received some phone calls about, various, whether they're vehicles or trailers that are just not abiding by the posted signage. I'm excited about the opportunity for us to have a more planned and purposeful partnership with the municipality for safe and accessible parking. I think our involvement with the municipality up till now has certainly got us pretty far down the road as far as safe and accessible parking, but it's been incidental in nature. So we're looking for a way for the municipality to partner with us. We would be able to help with some of the logistical, the planning, the transition from the current state to whatever that next state is that the municipality chooses to pursue. We could do that through our newsletter publications, through our annual meetings, through some leaflet distribution. So I do think, Councillor McEwen, you've got some really good questions or concerns, but I think we have some opportunities to provide a long enough education period before we do a next step of having to do the enforcement side of things. I think on behalf of the task force, we're just really encouraging the municipality to undertake whatever changes are required to allow the enforcement side, if required, and to be enacted. So I don't know if there are other task force members that want to clarify anything that I may have muddied or add anything to what I've already said. But thank you for the opportunity to address.
And thank you, Paul. Are there I'm just thinking about the questions that Councillor McEwen raised. Just to perhaps clarify kind of how this works. If the only the real enabling factor for this to be a viable option, I think, is the fact that it is possible to have an online application that allows people to buy parking permits in real time using any internet connected device like a smartphone or whatever. So they can do that 24/7. And so essentially what happens, the starting point of enforcement is that somebody goes around, and you will have experienced this when you've gone to larger metropolitan areas typically, but you someone goes around and sees a vehicle that is parked there, and in the old days there would be an actual parking ticket on the vehicle, but that you'd get out of a meter or something, which is not a practical thing for us to consider. But in this particular case, the person who's doing the checking, the enforcement, has an administrative app on a smart device, and they simply punch in the license number of the vehicle, the trailer or vehicle, and it's going to tell, the system is going to tell them whether that person has a permit or not. So they don't have to display anything. They just, and they can see when the permit was obtained and when it expires. So now if the person is quote unquote legally parked or not. If they're not parked, then typically what would happen is a parking ticket would be affixed to the vehicle, which the person has an opportunity to pay to the municipality at a later time. If they don't do that, then of course a charge under the Provincial Offences Act would be issued. But at the point of checking, it isn't necessary for someone to look up license plate numbers. And by the way, that is part of the typical part of enforcement, and only recognized by law enforcement officers are able to get access to the provincial systems that allow you to look up somebody's license number and see who it belongs to. But that isn't the first line of defense. That happens if somebody is parked, receives an actual ticket and then doesn't pay it. So hopefully a relatively small number of those would happen. And that is an implementation step that would have to be made. We would have to complete the application to MTO to be able to verify those, and probably only our senior bylaw enforcement officer would be the one who would actually do that, likely.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
I apologize. I want to make sure that I shared some of those logistics that we're hoping to, move forward with, but I think, as you said, that first hurdle is really just the request put forward to municipality to do what is required to amend a bylaw that would allow enforcement of parking. And I don't know what you would determine what enforcement means. Your signage, the signage that has been provided that is lettered with the municipality of Whitestone quite clearly is very, very clear as far as where the provincial accessible parking spots are. It directs people where they need to park their unattended trailers. It directs people where to park their vehicles with trailer, and it directs people where to park their cars. And that would be, provide a very safe and accessible spot for, and I believe the count was somewhere around 250 parking spots between the two, the two landing spots. So that's what our membership has asked us to really address. That is the stumbling point for us to go any further with soliciting our membership for endorsement of any of those next step pieces. We need to know that enforcement is a viable alternative. And again, the municipality would then determine what enforcement looks like, if it's a pamphlet campaign, or if it is, as you're saying, Mr. Mayor, some ticketed pieces for observable infractions.
Okay, thanks. Well, let me move on and ask if other councilors have questions about or comments about this particular proposal?
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a couple.
Councillor Woods, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Did I just hear that there's about 250 spots between the two landing areas? Is that right? Is that what he was just said there?
That is probably the maximum of if people park, if people use the space well, in other words, they park where the right things in the right places, and that was the estimate that we worked to when we did the most recent expansion. So
And there's 100 properties that rely on. And I'm just looking at your quick fact sheet here, and it says approximately 100 properties rely on those, say 250 spots. So even if we do an enforcement thing, I'm fair to say that we still have an issue with not enough property to park on over there for everyone? They bring, if say everybody came up to those 100 properties and, husband and wife drove their vehicle each, there's 200. Right? So are we still going to be short? This is something we really have to look for more parking areas out in that direction, ultimately, at the end of the day.
Okay, good question. At some time in the future, I believe, based on the growth in volumes of traffic in the area that I've seen, I would say yes. I think we will have to expand it. I would mention to you that the current land use permit that we have, in the last round of expansion that we completed, well, it was really in 2020, the fall of 2020, and most of it was, the work was done. We didn't actually use all of it. There is a little bit more space which is available around the old, there used to be a landfill site there, a dump site, and we've gone up, we've sort of surrounded it on the one side, that would be the west side, but on the east side there is a little bit of additional space, and there is also some additional space further down that is Crown land, further down Indian Narrows Road. So there is an opportunity to expand it again further, but that's, right. Are we already out of parking space? I don't think so. Not unless the the demand goes up a bit. We should be okay. Not, but I would think going forward, and that was one of the considerations, by the way, was the fact that there is going to be at some point in time in the future additional work required, and the thought was it would be good if there was some revenue to help cover that, as opposed to every few years coming back to the general ratepayers and asking them to provide more parking at the landings. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that one. Anyways, I got a couple quick ones after that, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
As far as the online permitting system, like our fire system, I personally think it's a great idea. Is there going to be any other way for someone to purchase a permit, or has that been thought about if they don't have access to the internet? I know there's still a few people that'll actually call our fire chief for their fire permits, even though we're doing them online. Is there going to be any way for somebody to do it not online to get a permit up there?
At the risk of incurring the wrath of our CAO, I suppose. I was going to say they could call the municipal office and say I can't get online, and I don't see why it wouldn't be possible for a staff member to assist them, but I would hope that wouldn't be a major source of demand on our municipal staff. Most people are going to, you can always ask someone to to get it for you. And of course that you wouldn't be able to do that at 10 o'clock on Friday night, but you would be able to do it if you knew in advance that you were coming and you wanted a permit. I guess if you didn't have the internet connection to get it, then you could. I think you could ask staff.
Okay. And just talking about the fees here, was there any thought put into what kind of numbers we would be looking at charging people for spots? Whether it's seasonal or just, for the day or the week? Any
Well,
kind of thought on how much money we would be charging to make it worthwhile, or?
There actually was quite a bit of discussion around that. I would respond to you this way. I mean, this is one of the things, if you look at motions that are following on in the list, there's still some some work to sort out the details of this. But currently the seasonal permit that the Cottagers Association sells is, I believe, a parking permit is $70. And we did take a look at, so some of the members of the task force went out and took a look at what other people are charging. Other municipalities are charging south of us, and that's certainly not a high fee. So I mean, a seasonal permit might be more like $100 or something like that. I'm guessing, but there would also be, as the note suggests, permits available for day use, which would not be very expensive, and weekend use and that kind of thing. They would be proportionate, so that if you're only going to be there for a week or two, you would probably buy weekly permits. But once you're there for more than a couple of weeks, it's going to make sense for you to buy the seasonal permit. So it'd be kind of a structure like that. The exact numbers, I think, would have to be worked out, and we'd have to perhaps run them by people and see what the reaction is.
One last
But-
one, and then I'll give up.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll give
These are
someone
good
else an
questions.
opportunity. I'm sure everybody doesn't want to listen to me all night. And so there's about 250 spots, say the 100 properties. Would everybody be able to buy out all 250 spots, or would we reserve a certain amount just for people that would be coming in for, say, day trips or weekend trips kind of idea? And that's my last question, Mr.
Yeah, and again, that's a very good question, and it was raised by members of the task force. What happens if we run out of parking? Was sort of what started it, and the goal would be to try to make sure that we don't run out of parking and cause that problem. There is, I would say to you, and I think Paul mentioned this, there's a very strong commitment in the task force that we recognize that there is public use, and public isn't just ratepayers of the municipality of Whitestone, but public people in Ontario who like to come to this particular area to do their out tripping and camping and so on. And I would argue that it's in our long-term interest as a municipality to encourage encourage that and make sure that we don't discourage it. But I mean, there can be, once we know exactly how many people we can accommodate in the areas that we have, then the system can be programmed to say, to let people know that there is no more permit parking available if that happens, or no more permit parking of a certain type. And I think if we did get into the situation you described, which is that, seasonal residents are essentially buying up all the parking and there isn't parking available, then we would need to come back and say, let's let's open up that additional parking area that I mentioned a minute ago that is part of our existing land use permit that we didn't actually clear and grade. We would have a good reason to do that, to increase it to more.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate those comments that you just made. And that's all for my questions. I'll give someone else an opportunity to talk.
Okay, thanks.
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor,
Mayor, could I get? Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if we get a little clarification on the resolutions before we go any further.
Go ahead.
We received resolution revisions today around noon or 1 o'clock. And the revision we received, which was an update, is a little different than the one you read. You read that hereby approve the implementation of paid and enforced parking at Washikesh Landing as soon as practical. That's what came out, I'd say yesterday or just previous. Now, the revision that came out, it's slightly different. It's toned down a little bit, I guess. It says, Council Municipality Whitestone does hereby approve in principle the introduction of paid and enforced parking at Washikesh. So I'm wondering which resolution is correct, because there's quite a difference there. Approving in principle, that's more in my flavor for this evening, but anyway.
Well, okay, that is a good question, and you've hit on a sort of an important issue here. The reason that the resolutions were changed was to match what the report said. The original resolutions were simply came out of some discussion that I had with our CAO when we sort of said this item, when we decided that this item would be coming onto the agenda. But here's the thing. I think I said that this was kind of a, if you like, the part B is kind of a watershed motion, if you will, and I certainly recognize that this is a departure. This is a, philosophically a departure from what we've done before. It's not something that nobody else has done, but it's something that Whitestone really has not done in any sort of formal way. I mean, we do have a little bit of paid parking, if you like, on Farley's Road, but it's rather different. It's people who are entitled to use a particular parking area as a result of title. So this is what we wanted to do was we wanted to let the council consider this and decide, is this a direction that we're okay with going, or is it something that, philosophically people have a problem with? And there are some other details to be worked out, and the other motions have to do with those things that have to happen. Like, for example, we would have to amend our parking bylaw, which right now does not contemplate paid parking or any offenses related to paid parking at all. So that's a job that would have to be done. Implementation of this online system, which is commercially available, but it would obviously take a while for them to configure it and work out what the prices are and all these things. And that, that's another implementation task. I guess the purpose of the motion part B the way it is to get the council to declare itself and say, philosophically, we are supportive of having paid parking at a public landing. And at this particular parking lot, doesn't mean you have to do it at other ones, but this one, and that's kind of, that's the gate that we have to get through to get to any of the other details associated with it. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but I still don't quite remember what your resolution was, which resolution you read. It's almost like you had a different one than the
Well,
two resolutions I had.
The one that I read that Councillor Gorham Matthews moved and Councillor Lamb seconded was, this is part B, that
Okay.
the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve in principle the introduction of paid and enforced parking at the Washikesh landings to be implemented as soon as practical.
Okay, that's fine. You just,
That's the one that you received today. That's the one.
okay, and that's what I hoped you had read out to us, because I didn't
No.
have a copy of that other than.
Oh,
haven't
I
received it.
apologize. I did. That
Okay,
is, that's the one
thank you.
I read.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know what we were.
Okay.
discussing.
I see Lynn Brennan's got her hand up. So Lynn, would you like to comment?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a few things that have been asked. In that we perceive that this year we've already started selling permits, so that this season, 2022, would be the study time in terms of trying to determine exactly what type of permits are needed once an enforcement or an educational type of program is implemented. And that having people from the municipality come to the landings occasionally would also help later on to establish that the municipality is there to enforce or promote that the permits are bought. The signage already needs to be enforced, that because the Narrows has a 72-hour limit on it, and that has already raised questions to the municipality as to where can I park if I want to stay longer than the 72 hours. And I had to answer that question for somebody this week already. And we've already noticed that other people that have not previously bought permits are inquiring about them. So I think if we're doing an education this first part of the summer and then carrying over to enforcement from the municipality, it will tell us how many parking spaces are used by what group of people, whether seasonal or day users or canoe trippers, whatever. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes. From our task force and our understanding is there's a lot of municipalities that control their launches this way and have enforcement of parking areas, and ratepayers buy a permit for parking, and then they have so many for public spots also. That the license plate system would be used for the disabled parking already. So I assume that kind of system has to be in place anyway. And I think this is a fairness to all the ratepayers that are paying for parking, that it is enforced so that everybody's on the same page with that one. I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you,
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor.
Councillor.
Sorry,
Lamb.
did you want, yeah, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Many of the questions that I had when I read this over have been asked already. Several of them, particularly that Councillor Wood were answered. So I won't go back over that. I want to thank the committee. I think you've done a really excellent job here. I think this whole subject is a subject that sort of it moves along every year, and I think we've reached the point at Washikesh where we need to do this and enforce parking, to put a little more rigor in the system. I think if it's done correctly, I don't think there'll be hiccups to begin with in the first year. Adjustments will have to be made in the program, but we're able to do it, and I think it'll be good, particularly as you look to next year and all the hiccups are out. So I kind of of the opinion, pitter patter, let's get at her kind of, I'm not here to second guess the the committee, if that's what they want, and if that's what the association wants, and if that's what they feel is right and proper, then so be it. I, like Councillor Woods, was, I had this concern that we don't fill the parking lot up with people who simply go out and pay their 70 or $100 and they're able to park there all year, and therefore the people who want to casually go out there and put a boat in the water for the day or for a weekend or for something aren't able to do it. I think when I heard that there were 250 spots, I'm relieved that I don't think that will be such an issue, and I'm happy for that. So this is a unique way to treat the people at Washikesh and the parking area. I think we've made tremendous strides. If you think back, 2 or 3 years ago, what we had to what we're now contemplating doing. So enough. I have no problem with these motions that are forward. I guess we could debate them all night. I think we should get on and pass them. Certainly the detail of this will come back to us. Someone made the right statement. For the seasonal people who live in a metropolitan area, they're used to paid parking. This is nothing different to them. It's sort of like saying, well, we've got mandatory recycling. They've had mandatory recycling for years, right? So they're used to paid parking, and they won't mind paying a few dollars to ensure a parking spot, as long as there's enough spots for the day people or the weekend people, then I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Councillor Gorham Matthews had her hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I've just been waiting patiently.
I should have let you speak first. You're the mover. Yeah, you should have. You should have got
That's
first.
okay.
dibs.
No, I've been attending the meetings, so I have a better understanding of this than the people that are just seeing this for the first time. So I was more than okay with waiting. I just want to point out a few things. First of all, I want to thank yourself, Mayor Comrie, and the members of the Whitestone or the Washikesh task force that worked on this. There's a lot of work went into this to create these. They've boiled it down to 4 or 5 pages, but it was a lot of discussion. It was a lot of work for you to synthesize this into this package. So thank you to everyone that's committed so much time to it. And I just wanted to point out that I've, been thinking about this a lot. It's not something to quickly enter into without a lot of consideration when you're going into something new with this. But what I think will be the selling point for a lot of people that are going to be having to experience buying these parking permits now is that we have, as a council over the last 2 years, spent a lot of money back at Washikesh, more than what we planned. And if you look at the initial items that we were looking at, we still haven't addressed docking. We are going to, in the near future, need to replace the dock at Bennett's Bay. And there's other additional parking spaces that we can open up. And I think the real selling point on this paid parking in this area is that any revenue above what it takes to run the program is going to go specifically to the Washikesh area and allow us to have a reserve fund to continue to work and improve back there and get the docking up the way that we want it and get more parking area. We do need it. People have to park along the road during the busy time of the season. So I think having this reserve will allow us to continue to move forward without burdening the other people in the community that don't use the area, and maybe set a precedence for other docking situations that may need the same type of reserve fund in their location. So and the other thing with the parking too is I'll point out, not only does the enforcement allow you to finally collect all the revenue to go with it, but it allows you to enforce people parking in the right spot. Because even though the signage is up there, they cannot enforce it yet. So a lot of the spaces that could be used aren't quite being used properly yet. So if everyone was parking in the right spot and they were able to enforce that, that would create a lot of additional parking spaces as well. So, you know, I've bounced this off a few people, and I think this is the way that we need to go, and that the revenue can be streamlined into Washikesh and keep improving things back there as the area continues to grow.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a quick add. Everything was answered. Everybody has been very great with questions and stuff. The quick question that was concerns was the parking availability compared to the cottages that are there. I've been going for 30 years, and we've had some really busy weekends. Like Civic Long Weekend is the busiest, and yeah, it's been inconvenient. But there's generally you can find a place to park with the municipality's signage and a little direction and a little more uniformity to where people park. There'll be more enough parking for now until more cottages are added and more families and stuff. But generally on a weekend to weekend basis, we do manage to find room for parking, and even for people that come in for the day or for the weekend. So that there'll be always spots for somebody that are just want to come in for a canoe trip for a week or just want to come in for the day. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. That's a concern as far as if a lot of parking passes, annual parking passes are taken up, there'll still be some room for people. So that's my 2 cents worth.
All right, thank you, Steve. I appreciate your efforts. Steve's been a hardworking member of the task force since he joined. He, some of you will remember, he replaced Mike Messina back when he passed away. And has taken his fair share of the workload, I can tell you. So anyway, are there, if there's nothing else, I will ask our clerk to call the roll for the vote on this motion, motion B. Does anybody want me to read it again? Are you okay? No?
No, it's fine.
All right, Madam CAO, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gord Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
All right, thank you very much. Now, there are a couple more which are really related to implementation steps here. So I will read them for you. Item C, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby request staff to bring forward an amendment to bylaw 38-2016, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and to govern and control the parking of vehicles within the municipality of Whitestone. So that's our existing bylaw, in support of the implementation of enforced parking at the Washikesh landings as soon as practical. Can I get a mover and seconder for that piece, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
thank you, Councillor McEwen. Is there any discussion about this motion? Okay, is there any opposition to the motion? All right, I will consider it carried. So item D reads as follows, that the Washikesh Landings Task Force develop an implementation plan for paid and enforced permit parking at the Washikesh Landings in cooperation with the Washikesh Conservation Association and municipal staff. Someone like to move that one, please?
I'll move that, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by,
I'll second it, Counselor Lamb.
all right, we got Councillor Lamb as a seconder. Any discussion about this one? All right, any opposition to that motion? Okay, thank you. And finally, part E. That the Washikesh Landings Task Force negotiate a revised agreement with the Washikesh Conservation Association with respect to the Washikesh Landings following the Washikesh Conservation Association's 2022 AGM for ratification by Whitestone Council. Again, this is sort of the final. You will notice there's a reference in the report to there was an existing agreement which expired, and there was a little bit of question as to what should be included in the replacement, so it hasn't been renewed yet. But this again is one of these things that would obviously involve our staff and as well. But it's just it's one of the action items that can follow sort of after the other things. The existing agreement, by the way, is being honored by both the municipality and the association until it gets replaced. So there's no deadline, but the association wanted to have an opportunity to, what if we came up with something that made sense, they wanted to have an opportunity to discuss that at their upcoming AGM, which will be the August 1st weekend. So that won't happen for a while. Anyway, is there a mover and seconder for that final piece?
I'll move it.
Councillor Gore Matthews, thank you. Seconder?
I'll second that, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. Any discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Okay, well, thank you very much. That brings us to item 15, which is correspondence. I'll ask for a mover and seconder for the following. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items as listed on page 5 of the April 19th, 2022 Council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that Council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion or action. So can I get a mover and seconder, and then we'll populate the list to discuss.
I'll
I'll
move.
move.
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Sorry, Councillor Gore Matthews, were you first?
I think
Yes, she
so.
was.
All right.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay, Councillor Gore Matthews moves and Councillor McEwen seconds that motion. Now then, there are only on that list 4 items, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, I'm just turning to the page so I don't tell you the wrong thing, because there are actually 4 items, and I'll explain to you why. The first one is item A, which was a letter from the Chief of Emergency Management for Ontario telling us all that we are telling me that we're all in compliance with their requirements for the plan for this year. Item B was what item B was supposed to be was a letter from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, OMAFRA for short, talking about avian bird flu, influenza H5N1 in Ontario. And Councillor Gore Matthews, I believe, has been to a workshop on that particular problem. Item C was a letter to us from Chris Dyer and Wendy Kritzer in regards to the Gooseneck Lake dock. And the fourth item, as it happened, was it kind of got mixed up with item B. It was a letter from the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs regarding the Shawaniga land claim. And originally, that item wasn't going to be on this particular agenda, but however, since it accidentally got attached in place of the letter about the avian flu. So now you've got the one on the avian flu, so you've got 4 of them. So that's A, B, C, and D. I will comment very briefly on item D, just to allay any concerns people might have based on what I know, which isn't very much. But are there any other ones that you would like? Anybody want to talk about emergency management? Anybody want to talk about avian bird flu? Councillor Gore Matthews, you want to say anything about that or that one or no? Yeah, you don't have to if you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the letter was pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, well, we don't have to pull it for discussion. I'm not trying to prolong the meeting. So it's if anybody wants it, please say so. If not, item C about Gooseneck Lake dock. We have received other, by the way, we have received other correspondence by email from people who said similar sorts of things to that particular letter. And I did respond to them basically saying, okay, we're going, here's what's going to happen with respect to that. And then we have the Indigenous Affairs ones, which I will put on the list just for the sake of the record, since people have now seen the letter. So anything other than D? Okay, that's the only one I have on the list then. Indigenous Affairs, Shawaniga land claim. So you saw the letter, which basically says there is a process that is just starting with respect to a so-called land claim submitted by the Shawaniga First Nation. And the individual who sent the letter telephoned me after sending the letter to say, just to let us know that this is sort of in the spirit of consultation and so on. So I had a number of questions. And I guess my first one was really sort of, where are we in the process and how imminent is this? And it's very early in the process. The reason they sent the letter was because they thought that if people in Whitestone, and by the way, it also affects the township of the Archipelago and others, if anyone knew these discussions were going on, that they would say, how come weren't we being kept informed? But they're at a very preliminary stage between officials of the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs and the First Nations Band Council. And so it is, people would say, well, is this going to affect us in Whitestone? We don't know. How is it going to affect us? We don't know. But we did get assurances that once there is something sort of on the table that the two groups think makes sense, then there would be broad public consultation. They would arrange for meetings to be held, perhaps, in our community center or whatever, and, the public could come and ask questions and so on. The process does have a large public consultation component to it. It's, when would that likely happen? Probably not this year, probably next year. So this is very, very early notice of a process. I don't believe that there's any, any cause for alarm. If you have followed how these things have unfolded in other jurisdictions, because there are some land claims that have been settled. And basically what is happening is that the province of Ontario is trying to, I'm sure everybody has heard about land claims, and the gist of a land claim is to say, well, for the First Nation to say, well, we didn't really cede all of the territory that we were occupying, or we didn't receive adequate compensation for what we gave up. And so what the province is trying to do is they're trying to settle the claim, which means that the claim goes away. And there have actually been a few of them that have been settled. And it typically involves some monetary compensation and some other in-kind things that are done to help the First Nation be more self-sustainable economically and things of that sort. It does not involve things like expropriation of land that people already own or any of that kind of thing. So it's not a, it's as I say, I don't think there is any cause for alarm about this, but given that the letter's in the public domain, I'm sure some people will read it and say, well, wait a minute, what's going to, and I guess the closer you are, we don't have a lot of people that are really close, that live close to where the existing First Nation boundary is, but I can see that some of those people might be wondering what's going on. And I'm here to say to them that I don't mind you asking, but I don't have anything to tell you, and neither does the municipal office. Unfortunately, it is really just too early in the game. So let me, if I can, just leave it at that. The process has started, and we'll find out more about it in due course, but don't hold your breath. It's a long process.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
maybe you can ask me a question. Like, you started off by saying, and I think we got some correspondence this afternoon, this wasn't supposed to be in the public domain. And, I don't know, we get a correspondence in, and the correspondence that comes in gets put into correspondence, and we do what we're doing tonight. So I guess my question is, what's wrong with it being in the public domain, and what's wrong with you doing what you did tonight? In other words, why wasn't it supposed to be in the public domain? Transparent, tell you that it should be.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't say, I hope I didn't say that. It is supposed to be, that was the intent of the letter. I did ask, the first question I actually asked the chap when he phoned me is what are we supposed to do with this?
No, you're misunderstanding, I think. You said to
it wasn't the letter that I didn't intend to have it on tonight's agenda, and it wasn't
why
the wrong letter got attached. Okay, to the you'll notice it's mixed up on the original agenda that was circulated. It got mixed up with the avian flu. It was supposed to be the avian flu letter, but
okay, my question is simple. Why wasn't it supposed to be on the agenda tonight?
Oh, just because at the time the agenda was published, I hadn't had this conversation with the guy.
Oh, okay. You didn't explain that. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I just, when I saw the thing, I thought I'm going to call him and try to get some information so that otherwise, I wouldn't know what to, so I wasn't saying that we wouldn't announce it. It's just, I wanted to have more information when,
I see. Okay, thank you.
so I thought it would go to another agenda.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, so is there anything else about correspondence? I don't think I called the question for the motion, but I'm assuming nobody's opposed to it. Is that okay? And matters arising for correspondence, there really isn't any. Well, the next motion has the confirmatory bylaw, but we do have, I think we have councillor items.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Councillor Lamb.
Whoops, sorry.
No, I just said
April-
councillor Lamb. Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. On April 4th, we received the council and our CAO received an email from Nick Stitt regarding Shawanaga Lake Road, and he had a number of questions. It was a rather lengthy email. And I know it's been kind of referred to people, but he did ask in that in his email that we review and discuss his email at an upcoming council meeting. So I just wonder, I guess my question is, what's happening to Mr. Stitt's email and our responses to him on his variety of issues?
Okay, so most of his questions had to do with Shawanaga Lake Road and with the maintenance of thereof. And how we had decided what, the standard was for maintenance for certain parts of it and so on, which I could not answer. I referred that to our staff, and Dave Creaser is looking into the details of the questions that he asked, and is going to prepare a response for that.
Okay.
And I did communicate with Mr. Stitt to say that, we were looking into this, and I would get back to him in due course. So, so I believe he understands what's going on. He did raise a lot of questions, as you know, in his
He sure
message.
did. Yeah.
So
all of council will get what David's response is to Mr. Stitz, I assume.
that's certainly my intention for that part of it. I mean, I don't know the other about he kind of asked questions about how do we make decisions and so on, and that's kind of I guess that's a governance question, and what what kind of inputs the people do the ratepayers have into them, and I hadn't looked at any of those things yet in terms of trying to respond to them, but we're basically waiting for to get the answers to the Shawanaga Lake ones.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there other councilor items? Councilor Gore Matthews. Oh, sorry, Councilor Woods, go ahead.
I'll just be quick, Mr. Mayor. The first one, I'd just like to say, I took the opportunity this weekend and went over to our community center for breakfast with the Easter Bunny with the kids this weekend, and I just wanted to thank everyone involved in putting that breakfast on. I absolutely, totally loved it, to be honest with you. It was great seeing everyone from the community out. Smiles, actual smiles, right? For the first time in a long time, people sitting down and watching all the kids play and run around and get excited for the Easter Bunny. So I'd just like to thank everyone involved there. It's a fantastic day out. That would be my first one. My second one, I brought this up maybe quite a while ago now, and I had a couple of ratepayers contact me on it. The sign on the bunny trail, I thought we were going to be posting when our council meetings were going to be on there. And I was just wondering if we were going to update that anytime soon. The sign still reads for message about a meeting last November. So I'd just like to throw that out there, that it's a usable tool for people to know when we're having our meetings and any other kind of messaging for the people that get into the municipality using the bunny trail. And that's everything. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I will ask our, let's go backwards. I'll ask the CAO if she has any comment with respect to the sign first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Typically, the sign is we start to put the message on about this time of year. So thank you for the reminder. There should have been, and I don't go with the bunny trail that often, so didn't notice. There should have been simply a winter message on there because it's difficult to change the time in the winter months with all the snow. So I will remind staff that we can start putting council meeting information on that sign. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Gorham Matthews, I think was going to also comment on Saturday. Did you want to do that, or?
Sure. Yeah, I was volunteering that day, and it was a really great day. Like Councillor Wood said, it was nice to see everyone out. There were just as many seniors as there were kids. I think everyone was looking for to get out and have a good visit. I know my dad came out and he commented the next day about how nice it was just to see everybody that he hadn't seen for a couple of years now. So we cooked and cooked and cooked until we were out of food. So it was a good morning. The other items I wanted to bring up were some upcoming events. On Thursday evening at 7 p.m. at the community center, there's a presentation on medicinal medicines that's being jointly presented by the library and the Agricultural Society. And I'll remind everyone, on Friday, it's Earth Day, and we're going to be doing the cleanup from 10 till 12. The municipality will be providing bags and gloves that you can get from either the library or the community center, and you can pick up garbage and come back and have a cup of soup provided by the Lions Club. There's potato soup and chicken noodle soup for free. You can have a little visit with the people you've been picking up garbage with. And I'll just let everyone know that there'll be some advertising coming out for a webinar that's going on this Saturday, presented by the Stewardship Committee. And it's we have 4 speakers based on items that we've seen people asking questions about on Facebook and social media, things that seem to pop up in the community. So the first speaker is someone from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. They'll be talking about septic systems and do's and don'ts and things that you should know about keeping your septic system working longer and healthier. We'll have somebody from Watersheds Canada speaking as well, and they're going to be talking about the importance of keeping your shoreline natural, the importance of the correlation between natural shoreline and water quality. So that will be another interesting presentation. Our third speaker is someone from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, talking about spongy moth, also known as gypsy moth, an update of what to expect for the Parry Sound area and what people in our community can do to protect their property. And our fourth speaker of the morning will be a video presentation about native plants and herbs and how many of them are species at risk now just due to overdevelopment and people's choices of what they plant on their properties. So we're going to be having that presentation to encourage people to plant natural species in our community. So that's happening on Saturday morning from 10 till 12. It's a webinar. We'll be recording it, so anyone that is busy at that time can come back and watch it at a later date. So that's what our committee has done for Earth Day. That will be on Saturday. The other item I just wanted to bring up was that I was out on Nesbit Trail on the weekend and it's all cleaned up and ready to go. So anyone that wants to go for a hike can certainly start using it again. There was no snow anywhere. It was good going. There's a few wet spots, but I had running shoes on and you can certainly detour them easily enough. So my last item, I'm not sure if we have an answer to this yet, but I had spoken to our CAO earlier in the week about a request I had from someone from the Legion that was interested in what we were doing with our old sign that we had at the community center, the billboard sign. Theirs is, it's worn out. If you drive by the Legion, you can see that it's had better days. I'm not sure what our procedure is in disposing of the sign, but I would like to make a suggestion that we donate it to the Legion. They can certainly use the help after being closed for 2 years. The expense of having to replace their sign to advertise their events isn't something I think that they need at this point. So if I could make that suggestion, I will. And that's all my items.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a couple of quick ones.
And go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
Councillor Gorham Matthew reminded me of a brief discussion I had with Cal at the Legion. They will be approaching the municipality. They're very anxious to look at locations around the municipality again. They've been looking at over and over. A place to put a cenotaph, someplace to have a more recognized feature for the Legion. You can see McKellar's as you go by Minerva Park, beautiful little setting they've got in there. So he broached this with me. I was at dinner at the Legion. Thank goodness we finally got out someplace. So at the Legion. So they will be in touch with the municipality on that topic. I've talked to a couple of people, and one in particular at the Legion also. They had been at the Ardbeg Community Center and just totally amazed and excited about what's happening in that community around that community center. And they were able to attend a Thursday evening music to sit and enjoy. So, it's pleasing to hear that they've worked so hard and done so well out there. Councillor Woods, he's kept us abreast of what's been going on out there somewhat. Appreciate that. Again, the breakfast for the Easter was amazing. Thank you to those folks. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody. Okay, if there are no more councillor items, are there any questions from the public? Do we have any members of the public? Well. Okay. I don't see any. Don't think we do. So anyway. If not, then we can have a mover and seconder for our confirmatory bylaw.
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second.
I'll second, Councillor.
okay, I got Councillor Gorham Matthews first, I think. I assume that you're okay with that resolution. And that leads us to adjournment at 8:40 p.m.
I will move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by,
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Our next, it says it's a special council meeting on Tuesday, May 3rd. I think it's a regular council meeting. Is that not correct, Madam CAO?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
All right, it's a regular council meeting, but that's the next one we have. And so, thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy we stand adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Rest of your week
Rest for a week in the snow.
in the snow. Yes.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Night.